Hello everyone, this is the first video in a series of videos where I will go through each of the 116 LXS cases, 117 if you count the solved LXS case, where I will explain what my finger tricks for each case are, as well as some good alternative algorithms that may be as fast or almost as fast and may have their own merits. This is the first video in the series, or the 0th video in a different sense, and this video will be covering certain finger tricks that I use in my algorithms that may not be common in 3x3 speed solving, as well as some cases that you can learn earlier on if you want to practice certain finger tricks. If you do not want to learn some of these finger tricks, then you may, then I will be explaining alternative ways of doing certain algorithms that don't utilize some complex finger tricks. So for those of you who don't know what LXS is, you probably do since you came here for APB content. Clicked on this video but it solves the last 3 edge pieces right here. This front right, down right, and front down right. And it preserves edge orientation, so it will only cover cases where these 2 pieces are oriented. Also, since the rest of F2L is assumed to be solved as well when we do LXS, for instance, this case, you will not have cases where one of these edge pieces or corners is not in the top or the right layer. So, if you have any further questions beyond what my video series provides, or just in general, you can go to the APB Discord. I do not know if I'll be able to link the Discord because I haven't figured out how to do that yet. If I did, then it will probably be in the description. If not, you can just check Liam Haiduchek's videos about the APB method, and the links to the Discord will be there. The cube I am using for this is the Moyu Weilong V9, and it's a pretty good cube. Most cubes that are made in the last 10 years should be fine, as long as you didn't get it from like the dollar store, or you didn't get it in 1980. You should probably, if you did one of those two, probably get a better cube. But that should be all for the introduction. Okay, so the first thing is to cover is the use of push U moves versus backflip U moves. Both are left-hand U moves that can be used when the right hand is either out of position to do a U move, such as when the right hand is gripping the cube like this. It's hard to do a U move like that. You can do a drag U. I'll cover that in a bit, but most of the time it'll be either push or backflip U. So the first case that we can cover is this case here. In this case, the optimal algorithm to solve this utilizes some D moves. So it's going to be this is the up front right case with the DR edge up front and front right. So you move this into the back and you do R, D prime, R, push U, R prime, D, R. Here, I prefer push U instead of backflip U. And this is because when you do D moves, you're only gripping with the middle finger on the E slice layer. And when you do a backflip, in addition to having a weaker grip on the cube, you also have less movement because you can't move your middle finger out to move your thing around. Your middle finger is gripping. And so in those cases, usually with D-move algs, that's why I prefer to use push moves. Now, if we take a different case, such as this case, which I showed earlier, this is the front upright case with front up and upright as the LXS case. And the solution to this is the R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R. And you can notice that that time I decided to do a backflip. And the reason is I just did a U prime right before it. And then after doing the R move, in order to do a U prime, I'd either have to, with a push, I'd either have to push with the middle finger, or I'd have to or I could backflip like this. Now if I wanted to push with the second finger, since I first did a U prime, my finger's all the way over here, so I'd have to bring it all the way back to do a push. But if I want to do a backflip, my finger's already over here, so I can just do the backflip. So once again, R prime, U prime, like that. It is pretty fast. Now, a third case that we might come across for doing push U moves is something like this. This is going to be the right down front case with up left and up right, but we solve it from this angle. And the algorithm to solve this would be r prime, u prime, r, u, r2, u, r prime. And you can notice that that time I decided to do, for that alg, I decided to do a backflip. And there's actually nothing wrong with doing a push u instead for this case. If you do r prime, u prime, r, u, r2, u, r prime, you have plenty of time after doing the u prime, even just like not bringing your finger all the way over here, to just bring your finger back, and you can do a push u. Because you are doing 3 moves with the right hand before you do another move with the left hand. So either push u or backflip u is fine in that algorithm. I just prefer backflip to push u in general, so that is why I chose backflip. It is also worth noting that for any of these algs, if you do backflip or you do push, even if I say it's not optimal, it's probably fine. It's just like a tiny time loss and won't make too much of a difference in the overall execution. But I have mentioned my preferences for backflip versus push. It is next up on the list, drag u. So if we go back to this alg, some of you may know that an alternative way to execute this alg is r prime, u prime, r, and then drag u, r. I am not as familiar with drag u. I can do that decently fast. I do prefer the backflip to the drag u, but if you guys really prefer the drag u, you can also try and find ways to use the drag u in some of the LXS algs I mentioned. But I will probably not be pointing out in the video, so that'll be up to you to figure out when you can use the drag u. Next up on the list, S prime R2, S prime R2, or S prime R2, S prime. In particular, there's 2 ways you can do this execution. There's S prime R2 prime, S prime R2, where you do the first R2 like this, or you can execute it S prime R2, S prime R2 prime, where you do it like that. I am much more used to doing it the first way, and I'm sure that some of you, if you prefer, you can do it the second way as well. There are certain cases where it might actually be faster to do it the second way, and one such case is RU prime R3, S prime R2, S prime. So something like this case. I don't actually use the S move alg for this, but it is basically as fast. So one way you can solve this is by inserting, and then you do an R3. But if you do it the other way, if we undo this, it's RU prime, R, S prime R2, S. Okay. But if you, another way you could do it is if you did it the other way, S prime R2, S prime, R prime U, R prime, then that might save a bit on how far you rotate the R. Personally, I don't think that the difference between an R3 and an R is that significant, but those of you who are proficient at doing it this way might actually find a time save. It is worth noting that in cases such as where you do S prime R2, S prime R2, U2 prime, R prime, if after the R3 you do a U2 prime, I don't find that there's any time save from doing it either way, because the slowest part of that alg is the fact that you have to reload your 2 fingers to do the U2 prime after doing the S prime like this. Next up, ring pinky U2. So a lot of us are familiar with doing D2 with the left hand, particularly from like A perms. Yeah. I flubbed those A perms kind of. But anyway, you might be familiar with D2, but if you're not as familiar with doing them on the right hand like this, there are some algs where you actually flip your hand upside down and do a D2 like this, except since it's on the top layer, it's going to be a U2, but you end up using your ring and pinky. One such case is this case, where you have front up right, up left, and up right. And the fastest way to finger trick I find this is you regrip like this and then do R prime, U2 with the ring and pinky, and then R2, U2, R. So, kind of like that. That is a good alg to learn if you want to learn that finger trick. But I will also mention other algs that do not use ring and pinky for the U2. The next up is the pinky R. This is used a lot in one-handed solving, and this can occasionally be used in two types of cases. The first most common type is algs that end with R2UR. So one such alg is R prime U prime R2UR. It's going to be this case. And to solve it, you can do R prime U prime, and you notice that for these R2UR sequences, your thumb is already on the bottom, so it's not practical to regrip and do an R2 prime. You should just do R2, pinch U, and then pinky R. If you do not want to do the pinky R, you can also do middle finger R like that. I don't like it as much, but Exelis in his video series does like to use this middle finger R2, like this. But additionally, by using the left pinky, you get a bit more time to regrip with your right hand before ZBLL. The other case that you might use the ring pinky is if you're doing a spin to win algorithm. So if you do this case right here, you have front right down, up front, down right. This is basically like the only particularly good spin to win algorithm. But if you do R2, U2, like this, the next move is, in this alg is going to be an R, and it's kind of hard to do with anything except this left pinky. And then you complete like that. So that's the other time that you might use a pinky R. And in that case, it's pretty much required. Of course, you can always just not use spin to win algorithms, and in that case, the non-spin to win is almost as fast. So the last alg worth mentioning, or finger trick, is this U2 prime that I will use in some algs. So the first type of case where it is most useful is when you're doing a U2, and then after doing an R move, especially an R move and not an R prime, you're going to do a U prime. And I mention on R because because the way the corner cutting works, it locks up less if you do an R versus an R prime due to corner cutting. So one example alg of this is one I actually just showed. It's R prime showed but didn't go into detail on. It's R prime U2, R prime U2, R. Nope, not that one. It is it was the thing I used to set up to this case, which would be this case. So it's going to be right down front, front right, up right. And you do R prime, U2, R prime, and then instead of just doing U2 prime, R2, since the next move is with the left hand, you'd be overloading a finger slightly. It's a bit less because you're doing an R2 rather than an R, but you're still kind of overloading it a bit. Instead, you can do R prime, U2, R prime, and then this push U2. And then when you do the R2, the middle finger is already in position. So, done fast, it's like that. The last case where you might do a push U2 is R, U2, nope, R prime, U2, R prime, U, R prime, U, R. Okay, so a case where sometimes after finishing up, maybe you just did a U prime with the middle finger, and instead, if you don't want to reload the middle finger, you have a bit more, since you just did a U prime with the middle finger, you had this index finger free, so you might do a U2 instead of a U2 like that. So for instance, in this alg, one of the ways you can finger trick it, there are other ways, R prime, U prime, R, U prime, R, U2, R. You could also just like overload your fingers and basically the same speed. Like overloading would be like that. But I like to do the push U instead because it feels a fraction of a bit faster. That is it for the finger tricks that I think are particularly tricky that I will be featuring in my LXS guide. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.